And we're keeping George on because we're just going to stay with that theme of placemaking and, I suppose, custodianship or stewardship of what you already have, which George has spoken so powerfully to. So please give a very, very warm welcome to Dr. Paul Mullan, who is from the National Heritage Lottery Fund, to Kerrie Sweeney from the Maritime Belfast Trust, and Aeidin McCarter from Derry City and Strabane District Council. Up you come. Thank you so much. Paul, you're going to suffer from proximity bias, so I'll pick on you first. But obviously, we know that placemaking is really, really crucial for attracting tourists, and enhancing their experiences. But for you, like, what is it? It's both a tangible and intangible thing. What is it that makes a place special, or how do you go about being a memory maker?
Well, I mean, listening to George talk made me think about a talk I'd been to down in Fermanagh about 10 years ago. And some of you might have heard of this particular individual, Henry Glassy. And Henry Glassy is one of the great folklorists of the world. He's an American. And he's written many, many books, 5 of them about Ireland, 5 of them linked to the village of Arney in Fermanagh. So this great corpus of his work is quite phenomenal, and his importance in folklore is quite phenomenal. He was asked a question by somebody in the audience, you know, what is so special about Arney? And his response to that was, I could have gone anywhere in the north of Ireland and been able to reveal the depth of the fascinating stories of people and their lives. So, you know, that's to me what heritage is all about. And that's this sense of place, the sense of really valuing where you are from, your stories, all of those amazing narratives which, when somebody comes to visit you, you can kind of embrace with.
I'm glad you said amazing narratives and not grand ones.
Well, absolutely. Very, very, very conscious of that point you made earlier. So to me, that's what placemaking is all about. And one of the things that we all learned, I think, through the whole kind of COVID period was the importance of the local. And I mean, this is where in the South they did it so well. They had this kind of scheme of 5-minute heritage, encouraging you to go to walk in, you know,
your 5K, your 2K.
Absolutely, when you're and you know, we learned some of us it wasn't for the first time, but many people learned for the first time what the power of their own locality. By having to go out there and repeat those walks day after day, actually they began to open their eyes and they began to see things. And George was also talking about the idea of, he mentioned embodied carbon. But there's something else that buildings also and places also embody, and that is memory. This kind of embody, how can we unlock these really powerful stories about where we are from? And how can we sort of really engage people in that sort of way? And that, to me, is the power of heritage. And again, back to George, I mean, when we lose buildings, we lose those stories. We lose those connections to our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, all of that.
Can I just pick up on one thing of that? Sorry to jump in, because we're probably going to have a bigger debate. Is that a lot today we've talked about kind of importing tourists, you know, bringing people in and getting that investment and filling hotels and everything. But I think it's also about exporting those stories. And I think one of the problems that I've seen, like in my home city in Sunderland, is that because those buildings have been demolished and they've gone and lots of things have been lost, the young people that I talk to in the city have got no idea it even existed. They don't even know about those stories. They don't even know that Sunderland was one of the biggest kind of shipbuilding places in the world at one point. And actually, if you educate young people in history and storytelling, then when they go on holiday and they go abroad, they become the storytellers to then encourage people from overseas to want to come to Ireland. So I think that kind of import-export is really, really important when it comes to storytelling.
And look, I mean, just on that, Kerrie, like, I mean, it's hard to imagine that 20 years ago, the concept of where we are and Titanic Belfast, it was only identified as one of 5 kind of key potential areas, and here we are 20 years later, and it has been an incredible success story. But how important is that actually, just that going in and building those stories, maintaining it, for local as well as for international use? It's key really to the success.
Oh, definitely. Whenever Titanic Belfast was a concept, it was about repositioning Northern Ireland and its story, and and how do we take this international story of Titanic and say that Belfast was the birthplace, so that, so it's really taking Titanic Belfast and looking at that location and building something at the top of the Titanic and the Olympic slipways, right beside the magnificent drawing offices where the naval architects actually worked. So giving that visitors the experience to go there, as well as the Hamilton Dock.
The importance of having those physical buildings still there.
Exactly, and whenever George was saying, like, we lost a lot of our maritime and industrial heritage as well. So if it wasn't for Titanic Belfast coming along when it did in 2012, we have now safeguarded our scheduled monuments, the 2 slipways, the amazing drawing offices, the Hamilton Dock, the Thompson Dock. We've got the SS Nomadic, which is the last tender ship, the last White Star Line ship in the world, and visitors can actually get on it. And then we have this amazing backdrop here that visitors can come and experience, that we are still a working port, and Harland and Wolff today are still very much working on site. And so whenever we see visitors coming down here, they're taking photos of the buildings, they're taking photos of the slipways, but they're also taking photos of Harland and Wolff. And there's nothing like it anywhere else in the world, only here in Belfast. And I suppose a big thing for us at the time of developing Titanic Belfast was also engaging the wider community. And Harland and Wolff at a point in time employed over 20,000 men and women, and it was really important that we connect those people to this story because we're telling their story. So a big success of Titanic Belfast is how they have taken those stories, and even the whole, the staffing, the Titanic crew. Hopefully, if you get a chance to see some of the exhibitions this afternoon, if you haven't been in recently, but those stories have been filtered through, and every single member of staff, right from the senior management to the local crew, are the storytellers. And we've had great experience of, like, one example in Titanic Hotel, just bringing some of those stories alive, was whenever we took about several hundred of former employees that actually used to work in the drawing offices. They were the naval architects, and we took them around the building. When it was completely derelict, it was on that risk register. It was falling into decay, and we knew that we had to save it. But they were telling us their stories, and one of the stories that they told us was up in the second floor, which was another drawing offices, and it was sort of a 1960s sort of office that was just made out of wooden dividers. And they said you were only ever brought into that office if you were to get a bollocks and you had done something wrong. And whenever the interior designer came in to plan the whole of the restaurants and the interior design of the hotel, she took that office and put it in the middle of Titanic Belfast, now their main restaurant. And now that's and it's called the Bollocks and Box, and you can book it for private dining. But we've had so many former employees.
And the power just of those sort of individual stories that have informed.
Yeah, and the visitors come back, and the former employees also book it for special occasions. And I suppose that's the beauty about connecting people with place, and that's where the magic happens.
And looking for you, Aeidin, Derry has never been shy about telling its own stories. It's home to some amazing storytellers right across all of the culture and the arts, and particularly with Halloween. Can you tell me the role at the local authority? And John was mentioning earlier, John McGill was mentioning about the importance of local authorities now in really instilling that sense of place.
Yeah, well, we are certainly very lucky in Derry and Strabane. Our local population are not shy about telling us, giving us feedback and telling us what the stories are and what the place means to them. Local authorities, I think, have a really important role to play. And not least our own council area, I suppose, because we probably are so removed from maybe central government that people certainly see the local authority as being the authority for absolutely everything. um, so, over the last number of years, I think particularly since the review of public administration and the new councils, new sort of super councils as they're referred to, coming into being in 2015, and the community planning powers that local authorities have, there certainly is a statutory role for local authorities to bring partners together, and that's a big thing about what all the local authorities do, and work in partners with all the statutory agencies, not least Tourism Northern Ireland, and other government departments, and that we as a local authority have been lucky. We have a really strong sense of place, particularly in the city, and now right throughout the district, right into the Sperrins. We have always operated on a really strong partnership basis. And we've seen some of the key, so I've been in my role about nearly 8 years now. And I know when I started, I was sort of given this remit. It was post City of Culture, and we'd had a huge investment and huge profile of the place, particularly the city, as part of being the first UK City of Culture. And I was sort of handed this remit of, you've got to take this on now, and you've got to lead our tourism, arts and culture sector. And I thought, my God, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to step out of that massive investment? But one of the amazing things about that is that as a local authority, our local people, our citizens and our elected members recognise the importance of the place. They had an absolutely renewed sense of confidence. They understood the benefits of arts and culture. They understood the benefits of heritage, and our local authority, invested. I mean, my department's budget is now about $7.5 million invested into tourism, particularly into heritage, arts and culture, right across the board, and in a really strong festival events program. That's what we've grown, Derry Halloween to be, to have the profile that it has. But what we focused on was looking at what do we have. I do remember.
Mightn't have the same levels of finance. You have to look at their resources.
Absolutely, we had to. It was practicalities as well, but also we had to be really true and authentic to the place. And I mean, I do remember some people saying to me, Belfast have that big shiny Titanic building. We need to get something like that here. What? And I remember thinking, well, the Titanic is amazing, and I hope Kerrie doesn't make me say this, and this building is fantastic. But we have, we 400-year-old walls. We have people are coming from right across the world to see. We've so much history and heritage. We've so many stories to tell. We probably don't need a big shiny new thing. We probably need to look at maybe shining up some of the things we already have, and just starting to tell that story more cohesively, working together with our partners. And that's where we see now the Wall City experience is front and centre in our City Deal proposal. Also with the new Derry, London, Derry and the North Atlantic opening on Ebrington. I mean, Ebrington that has seen a transformational journey since 2013. We're the sort of last piece of the puzzle. I can see some of the Tourism NI colleagues there who've been on this long journey with us, and not least I should thank, while I'm on the stage with them, Paul Mullan and colleagues from National Lottery Heritage Fund, who have really stuck with us through that process to open, and we will open in 2026, the new museum at Ebrington, telling the story of people and place, and showcasing the really extensive museum collection that we had.
And just something, Kerrie, something that George was mentioning was, when you alienate or disengage the community, or you offend them with, with a lack of respect for the heritage, or you let those kind of key assets fall. When you kind of look at the plans for here, from the Maritime Mile to a full 10-kilometre waterfront, you've talked about the importance of, the stories and the local stories, and particularly for generations who may have worked here or lived here and are moving on. But there's a lot of stakeholders to manage there, and you're trying to get a balance between sustainability, the nature, residential, commercial, the cultural, everything. How do you go about doing that and having sustainable relationships over a long period of time?
That's a really hard question, that one. That's really unfair. Crikey.
Yeah,
Sorry,
well,
we'll be coming
Generation,
to you
every
next.
generation takes ages.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a question that you should answer it, but
But it's about the relationships.
well, for us, we set up a tourism task group recently. Sorry. And it was very much about bringing all of those stakeholders together. So we have different landowners, we've got public sector interests, and it was really about joining everybody up together and having one overarching vision. So it's really about vision, and that also goes back to, what was the success of Titanic Belfast. It was a joined up vision between all parties. So we brought in a team actually from Copenhagen, and they took a whole fresh look at the waterfront. They initially called it a story of dead ends, and it all needed to be connected up together. And it took us a good 12 to 18 months to work through that process, but we finally got there. And again, it's not about new shiny buildings, it's about the bits that join it all up together. The play areas, the public art, the cycling trails, the access onto the water, the pontoons, and some of them are going back to the earlier presentation of TNTs, that they're quick wins, that they're things that are actually doable and achievable. But collectively, we have 10,000 meters of active waterfront that connects Titanic Quarter in with our city centre, but also to our neighbourhood communities. And then with the neighbourhood communities, we also developed what we call the Maritime Belfast Story Plan. So, and it was over COVID, we engaged with all of our neighbourhood residential areas and went in and asked them, what does the maritime and industrial heritage mean to them? And we've mapped it all on a map, and coming out of that, we've got sort of 3 key themes around sort of taming and reclaiming the river, livelihoods and neighbourhoods, trading, making and innovating. And we're using those themes now to engage with all new developers, so that those stories are actually coming through some of the design, because again, a lot of those stories are just memories, and we need a way to capture those memories in some of the new developments on site. So that could be naming of a building, it could be naming of a street, it could be local public artwork, it's more interpretation. All those former workers that we've worked with over the years, they've actually given us lots of artifacts. So we're looking at how do we put those artifacts into the public realm and have touch points, so that we're again connecting people to stories.
And look, I mean, Paul, you can't please everyone all of the time, and often the past and identity and story and place can be contested in our own home place. But it seems that we're finding ways, whether it's through heritage, whether it is through culture, music, whatever it is, we're finding ways to celebrate that difference. So is that a sign of maturity and success on our part?
I think so. I think so. I mean, we've had, some of the deepest of divisions in this particular society, and we can still find ways that easily to divide us. But we've also started to find a way of working through that by recognizing that there are multiple stories out there. It's not just about the story of me and my community and who I am, but that the past is actually quite complex. And whenever you try to sort of strip it down to kind of binary elements of us and them, you actually miss the point about the past. If anything, I think we should deep dive more confidently into our troubled past. And it was, great to hear the minister talking about the bringing out the political stories, because I think, that's a real opportunity, not to give parts of our community chances to give propaganda about their background, but actually to reveal something about themselves and who they were, and help them. I think the key thing is helping people from different backgrounds to learn how to be able to communicate to more than just people like them. And I think that's a democratic opportunity. The more that we can learn about each other, the more that we can be prepared to sit down and listen and empathize to others who have very different experiences to ours, the more confident we will be in telling our authentic story. And that's what this is all about. It's all about authenticity. And the more we root the tourism opportunity in authenticity, the more we create a real distinctive sense of place. And to me, that's at the heart of placemaking.
I don't know if anybody saw earlier on Alice Manser's her presentation, and they were kind of looking at the factors that kind of make it into place, and at the end was sort of advocacy. And I don't know if anybody noticed there was a little heart, where, and I felt that George, that sort of really kind of spoke in terms of, in promoting this island, what they're actually looking for is that kind of heart experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of heart and there's a lot of passion. I talked about that before in Northern Ireland. I just want to talk about the architecture a little bit more because that's obviously my job. Is that what worries me is that when a master plan for regeneration is produced, you talk about the stories being complicated, but actually any master plan in any regeneration is really difficult. It takes a long time. You talked about the stakeholders, but you're talking about building use, you're talking about investment. Sometimes people want to push too fast and say, well, we can get investment in if we do this sort of building, but is that the right sort of building for the master plan? So you're constantly juggling kind of people
Tensions.
use, yeah, but also I think style, and this might not sound that important, but it is for me that in a global world, I see so many master plans where all the buildings look the same. Doesn't matter where they are. And it drives me mad, to be honest with you. I think when we talk about the history of a place and the history of the buildings, but every day we're creating new history. What we did yesterday was history. The building site that happened next door, you're creating history there. What stands there is going to be there for many years. The style of a place that talks about vernacular architecture, what makes it unique to that city? What makes it so special? In historical terms, if you go to Amsterdam, you're going to see a certain type of building. If you go to Paris, you're going to see their fantastic terraces and their streets and their parks and their squares. If you go to Newcastle, you're going to see the quayside and a certain type of building material being used, certain stones or certain bricks. And what bothers me now in a globalized world is most master plans are starting to look the same. Where actually I think we should be really understanding the buildings of the past and them inspiring new buildings of the future, so that if you're talking about tourism in 50 years' time, 60 years' time, 80 years' time, people are coming to see unique buildings in Belfast or Northern Ireland, not just more global stuff.
And that's been, Aeidin, that's really what you're doing in Derry Strabane. You're leaning into the existing heritage, whether that's through the buildings, whether it's through the walls, and you're really sort of leveraging that, whilst also, keeping an eye to the new shiny things.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly what we've tried to do, and certainly what we've tried to do with the new museum, and certainly, I mean, we've had a fabulous opportunity there at the Ebrington site with just the sheer volume of historic buildings that are there. But yeah, and I mean there's fabulous partners right throughout the city working on things like, the Inner City Trust and have done phenomenal work. There's so many heritage buildings. The work that St. Colum's Hall are doing, all of our heritage venues that we're working with right throughout the city and district. There's a real culture, I think, particularly in and around the wall city, of celebrating the architectural history and of being mindful of that going into the future. And I think increasingly, I think there's been a shift as well in the last number of years. I think overall as a society, and certainly in the Northwest, there's an increasing sort of more populist awareness of the importance of architectural heritage and how that should shape how we plan for the future. And I certainly, as a local authority, I think we see that coming from our citizens and coming from our elected members. They're reflecting that. And that's, that is, and the flip side of that, I suppose, into our wider city and district is there's an increased appreciation and awareness of the importance, and that a lot of that's come out of COVID, of our natural environment, and we see that in the right out throughout the Sperrins. I mean, we're working on a number of our council colleagues here we work on a partnership with 3 other councils in the Sperrins region, and they're about to get their first, we've just announced funding for the first AONB management plan for the Sperrins in 50 years of its existence. There is, we've just, you'll have seen some of the promotion around the giants that we've put in there, the Dambo giants. So there is a real, I think, shift in every day, I know usually if my family are starting to talk to me about things like the importance of old buildings, then probably there's something going on.
It's landing. Kerrie, when I travel, particularly in big cities where you have got taxi drivers, migrants who are, working all over cities, I always ask to tell me a place where tourists don't go. Tell me a restaurant or a building or somewhere that's off the beaten track, because I try and get a balance between seeing the big stuff, but also maybe going off the beaten track. And I think one of the fabulous things that I'm even constantly rediscovering when I tour at home is places you might have heard of, or just they're smaller, more intimate experiences that are equally as valid, like kind of like George's Americana. How important when you're looking down the tracks of 20 to 30 year generation, which will inevitably involve new builds or restorations, how important is it to get those kind of small local experiences that maybe not even AI is going to be able to track us down, hopefully not in the future?
Well, I think it's critical. I suppose one of the terms that Tourism Ireland and TNI are using as well is the slow visitor, and and a lot of talk today about regional spread, but also within Belfast, we have an issue of spreading visitors. So we've got a bulk of visitors that come to Titanic Belfast, but they're not going to the wider waterfront communities, and so we've got like real special areas on the waterfront like Sailortown, and we've got St Joseph's Church. They're working on plans to turn it into a whole cultural hub. Nowhere do we currently tell the story of the dockers on this side of the river. We're telling the story of the shipyard workers, and and there's such synergy between both stories, and it's really important that we really zone in on that and support them to develop. Now, it won't be the same volume of visitors that come to Titanic Belfast, but if we can disperse visitors over to Sailortown in terms of what it would do in terms of regeneration of that area and give them an income, that's critical. And then as well, the whole of our Maritime Mile, again, some people might get the opportunity to go this afternoon up to Titanic Distillery, but again, we need to spread our visitors so that whenever they go back again, they haven't just spent, 4 hours or half a day in Belfast, that they've spent 2 or 3 days in the city. And really important that we connect in with the city centre as well, because really the success and the life of the city centre is linked to what's happening on this waterfront, because it will eventually become part of the whole city centre experience, and being able to discover hubs and little moments of visitor experiences are really critical.
Well, what George really articulated very well, I felt, was that sustainability has connotations well beyond kind of ESG and environment and climate. It's actually about sustaining heritage and memory as well as sort of exporting our stories. How do we sort of support individual communities here to speak to the wider community across the island, because we're also tourists on our own islands?
Well, I mean, that's something that sort of we at the National Lottery Heritage Fund have always been trying to do. We have programs where communities can come to us to help them to uncover their story and sort of push that out more widely. One of the examples, I mean, I mentioned Arnie earlier. They had a project with us called Battles, Bricks and Bridges about 6 years ago. And it involved kind of an archaeological discovery of a battle site from the 9-year wars. And that particular project won the best archaeological project UK-wide in 2016. So, it's all there. It's there waiting to be discovered. And it is about confidence that people have within their communities to be able to recognize that actually people are interested in what they've got to say, and it's connecting in with everybody else in this room to help amplify that, from the guest house owner who will say, why don't you go and look at that, or did you know about this? It is all there. It's just about kind of opening the door to opening that particular Pandora's box.
George, so much of what your work actually, when you think about it, is yes, it's about the buildings and the restoration, but it's actually just all about excavating the stories. What's your favourite one that you've worked on? Your favourite restoration?
Crikey. There's actually been too many, to be honest. There's been some brilliant ones. I remember one was a Victorian water tower that I did in Norfolk. I mean, what made that a really exciting project was the guy who did it. He was called David Foster. And I first filmed with him in, I think, 2005. And he'd bought a Victorian water tower in the woods that everybody just thought was a complete waste of time and completely impractical to live in. And he spent many years turning it into a house, much to his wife's despair, because it was a painful. He's an eccentric, mad, crazy inventor. But what's beautiful, actually, is I've just filmed with him about 4 weeks ago. He's bought an old Victorian railway carriage, and he's doing another project. So he kind of never stops, really. But one that really sticks in my head, apart from David, is there's a lovely couple called David and Margaret in Northumberland, just near one of my favourite historic houses, which is Cragside National Trust property. Owned by the Duke of Northumberland. He used to own all the mills, flour mills along the river. And David and Margaret used to go walking. Basically, it was a fantastic village and town where they'd go walking every Sunday, and they used to pass this mill. And Margaret used to say, "Oh, I'd love to live in a building like that one day." And they lived in a fairly ordinary, they wouldn't mind me saying this, a fairly ordinary 3-bedroom house in Whitley Bay. And one day David spotted that it was coming up for auction, that the Duke of Northumberland was selling it off at an auction. And he went and did a deal to buy it before it went to auction, got it at a much lower price than he thought he would have to pay, and then surprised Margaret and said, "I've bought our dream house," and spent the next 3 years restoring it together. And that even if you ever go to Rothbury in Northumberland, go down to the old mill and knock on the door, and they'll give you a cup of tea and a bacon sarnie, and they'll tell you, because they're so proud of it, because they genuinely pinch themselves all the time that they cannot believe that they're living in that building.
And everybody does have that.
And they'll just say about we're custodians. I mean, they don't see
custodians.
them as owners; they see them as being custodians of building, and it's going to be passed on to somebody else, and it's just another chapter in their story.
And that's the job of so many people here today, that stewardship. Before I let all of you go, just very, very quickly, in terms of that, the stewardship and managing the story and both growing tourism but also minding local communities, what's your key piece of advice for each one of you? Paul, I'll start with you again.
Believe in your ideas, I think, really, and because a lot of people, they just don't think their story matters. Actually, it does.
Yeah, it's a key thing. Kerrie?
Working in partnership and collaboration. You know, when you see a room like this full of people, the amount of opportunities to work together, and places only happen when you have people working together to make them thrive and alive.
Brilliant. And finally, Aeidin?
I would say seize the opportunity. You know, the tourism industry is about really the tourism businesses, and all of what we do as agencies and everything else is to support that, to enable all of the businesses to grow and thrive and to support the economy. So I would say seize the opportunity and thrive.
George, if not in song, the final word to you.
I'm not going to sing it, definitely not. Mine would just be, remember what makes a place unique. You know, what is that unique story? And that's whether it's the history, the style of the architecture of the buildings, the people, the place. It does genuinely worry me that in a globalized world, so many things are becoming the same. And a lot of people will say, well, oh, let's do what they did in that country, or let's do what they did in that country. And then they'll take the idea and it doesn't work because it doesn't apply to that place. You know, Belfast and Northern Ireland's a very, very unique place, and you need to celebrate that through everything you do.
Absolutely. We'll listen to George, to Aeidin, to Kerrie, and Paul. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. I'll let you all head down.